The streets of Accra pulsated with energy. Vendors shouted out prices for ripe mangoes. Taxis honked impatiently at pedestrians, and young people bustled eagerly along the sidewalks, their laughter and chatter filling the air. But amidst this lively chaos, Amma walked alone. Her steps were hurried, her head dipped low. She was hiding, not from the people she passed, but from the truth, a truth she had buried beneath a web of lies. Beneath her arm, she carried a dusty old mirror, wrapped tightly in a piece of faded kente cloth. This mirror would change everything. Friends of Storytime Africa, have you ever kept a secret you wished could remain hidden forever? What would happen if the truth you buried didn't stay buried and came back to haunt you? Share your thoughts and experiences with us as we dive deeper into Amma's chilling tale. A story of deception, regret, and consequences. 3 nights ago, Amma had stumbled upon the antique mirror in a rundown stall during her visit to Makola Market, a place known for treasures and curiosities rooted in history. The old woman running the stall had an air of strangeness about her. Her thin fingers traced the edges of the mirror as she handed it to Amma with an unsettling smile. "A mirror shows more than the face," the woman had whispered. "It unveils the soul." Amma didn't take her words seriously. Who paid attention to riddles when they found a mirror so beautiful? Its gilded frame shimmered with hints of gold, despite its evident age. The glass reflected her flawlessly, almost too perfectly, as if it knew her better than she knew herself. That night, Amma placed the mirror in her bedroom, pleased with her purchase. She had no idea what she had brought into her home. The mirror was quiet at first, merely sitting and reflecting back her image, but it was subtle things that began to change. Late at night, she'd hear faint whispers while passing by, almost as though the mirror were talking. It seemed harmless, strange, but harmless. Then came the first vision. In it, Amma saw something that wasn't real. She saw herself crying. Tears streamed down her face as she begged someone to forgive her. But who was she begging? She didn't know, but the sight unsettled her deeply. The next morning, Amma thought about confronting her discomfort, but she shoved the feeling aside. Life in Ghana wasn't easy. Education expenses for her siblings, work as a cleaner at a hotel, and the struggle to make ends meet always left her exhausted. And though she never told her family, Amma had a habit of lying, small lies that kept her reputation intact, or so she thought. She lied about a job promotion, lied about the money she saved, and lied about debts she owed. She believed lying made things simpler. That belief was about to be shattered. It happened during the next vision. The mirror struck without warning. That evening, Amma stood before it after work, brushing her thick, curly hair. As she adjusted her blouse, her reflection smiled at her. A chilling smile that Amma wasn't wearing. Amma stumbled back, knocking over her comb in shock. Her heart raced. Was she seeing things? Then came the voice, low and guttural. "You cannot hide from me, Amma. Hide your lies if you will, but this glass holds your truth." Amma screamed. Outside the room, her younger brother Kwame knocked hurriedly on her door. "Amma, are you okay? I heard something." "I'm fine," she lied, her voice trembling. She had no choice but to act normal, but Amma wasn't fine. The mirror was alive. It wasn't just reflecting her anymore. It was showing visions. Moments from the past surfaced in its glass. The day she told her boss she'd pay back stolen money but never did. The evening she lent money out to someone from church while lying to her family that she couldn't help them financially. Each vision unfolded with gut-wrenching clarity. And it wasn't long before things spiraled further out of control. The next morning felt heavy, as though the house carried an invisible weight. Kwame was suspicious over Amma's behavior, and as they ate breakfast, he studied her with wary eyes. "Amma," he finally asked, "are you hiding something from us?" "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "Why would I?" Kwame didn't respond, but there was tension, the kind that made Amma's chest ache with guilt. Yet she refused to confess. She had to keep up appearances. As she left for work, the whispers followed her down the halls of her home. No one else heard them, only her. It was happening everywhere now, not just near the mirror. And the voices didn't stop there. They dragged her deeper into fear. On her way home that evening, Amma saw strange shadows trailing her as she walked through the streets of Accra. She tried to ignore them, blaming the dim light and exhaustion for playing tricks on her mind, but the shadows followed relentlessly. By the time she reached her front porch, the whispering returned, louder this time. No words, just a chilling, breathless hiss. Her chest tightened with panic as her trembling hands fumbled for the house keys. Once inside, relief swept over her like a flood. Brief, fleeting relief. Because the moment she stepped into her bedroom and looked at the mirror, her blood went cold. In its reflection, Amma saw people. People she knew. Kwame was there. Her boss was there. Her church friend. Each face turned toward her, and their eyes burned with betrayal. Amma, they called, their voices overlapping, growing louder until she wanted to cover her ears. Amma, why did you deceive us? Suddenly her mother appeared among them. In reality, her mother was long gone, passed away years ago. But the mirror brought her back, her expression severe and filled with disappointment. You have broken the promises of trust, Amma. Now you face the consequences. Before Amma could even comprehend what was happening, the glass began to crack. Hairline fractures spread across its surface like veins, each one accompanied by a sharp, ringing sound. Amma screamed, stepping backward, stumbling over her rug. And then all went dark. When Amma woke hours later, the mirror was calm and whole, as though nothing had happened. But Amma was not the same. As the days continued, the mirror punished her with more visions, each more horrifying than the last. She saw her secrets unraveling in terrifying ways. Kwame discovering her false savings, her boss firing her for theft, her friends turning cold once the lies became public. She tried to throw the mirror away, but she found it impossible to touch. Whenever she approached it, the whispering grew louder until it became unbearable. One night, Amma's screams woke her brother. When Kwame forced his way into her room and saw Amma collapsed on the floor, he immediately noticed the mirror. "Where did you get this?" he asked, trying to shake Amma awake. But Amma couldn't answer. Instead, the cracks reappeared, and Kwame's reflection stared back at him with a twisted smile that his real face didn't wear. Amma began isolating herself. Her excuses to avoid family gatherings increased. She skipped work. She avoided church. She was spiraling, and the mirror thrived in her agony. Yet nothing she tried freed her from its grip. The mirror wasn't showing possibilities anymore. It was dictating reality. Amma didn't know what to do, but she knew the whispers meant one thing. Her lies had consequences. And soon, she would face them all. What would you do if your secrets were exposed through something you couldn't escape? A mirror, a presence in your own home, or even the whispers of guilt in your mind? Share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned to see if Amma survives the mirror of broken promises. Amma knew she couldn't bear this alone. Across town, rumors of strange happenings had reached her ears. Stories of people cursed by objects they'd stumbled upon. She wasn't sure yet whom to turn to, but she was desperate to find someone who could understand. The mirror had shown her glimpses of something worse than death, and those glimpses were now seeping into her waking life. Amma decided she must confront the woman who sold her the mirror, the stall-keeper at Makola Market. What answers did the woman hold? And why would such a cursed item be sold to her so casually? Amma didn't know for sure, but one chilling thing unsettled her. As she passed through her home and switched off the lights to leave for the market, the mirror glowed faintly in the darkness, bright and golden, almost alive. Amma arrives at the market, determined but terrified. What she doesn't know is that the mirror is far from the only cursed artifact the stall-keeper possesses. Her encounter will be far darker than she ever imagines. Amma's breathing was uneven as she stepped out into the bustling streets of Accra, heading toward Makola Market. The mirror's golden glow haunted her mind, even in the bright daylight. Why hadn't she thrown it away? Why had she even brought such a thing into her home? She had asked herself these questions 100 times since last night. But the truth was clear. Something about the stall keeper, something about the mirror, held her in an unbearable grip. Her grandmother's words echoed like a hymn in her ears. Every tool in the hands of the unknown has a story. But some stories, child, are better left untold. Amma wished she had listened. But it was too late now. She had activated something. That much was clear. The Makola market was alive with the hum of the afternoon crowd. Smoke and heat hung in the air as vendors shouted over each other, selling fruits, fabrics, and handmade trinkets. The smell of roasted plantains and fresh fish mixed in a turbulent wave of sensations. Amma's grip tightened on her oversized bag as she weaved through the throng toward the farthest stalls. Friends, have you ever visited a market so lively, so unending in its surprises? A traditional African story often begins or ends in places filled with magic. Markets, remote villages, or forbidden forests. Tell Storytime Africa. Whether your markets have places like this, corners hiding relics, charms, or things better left alone. Pause, share your thoughts, or lean in closer to Amma's tale. The answers will chill and surprise you. Amma finally reached the narrow stone path leading to the shadow-covered corner of the market, where only sparse stalls offered goods too strange to make sense. It was quieter here, disturbingly so, as though the noise of the main market dared not trespass. There, her eyes spotted the stall keeper, a hunched figure cloaked in faded orange and leaning against a messy stack of dark wooden boxes. The woman appeared older than Amma had remembered, with a face like cracked leather and deep-set eyes that gleamed with secrets.
Back so soon?
Amma froze. How had she known Amma would return?
You shouldn't have come back, girl. Not many have the courage or the foolishness.
Amma gritted her teeth and stepped toward her, her fear replaced with determination.
You sold me that mirror. You knew? Even then, I think you knew. I want answers. Stop speaking in riddles.
The stallkeeper straightened with impossible speed, revealing her full height. She towered over Amma, her mouth pulled into a grin far too wide for her weathered face. Answers? She hissed, leaning closer. Do you think I gave you that mirror blindly? That's not how curses work. Before Amma could draw back, the stallkeeper grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, pulling her around the stall like a doll. Boxes fell as the stallkeeper ripped open a cloth covering and unveiled a sight that made Amma gasp aloud. Spread across the table were objects no ordinary vendor would dare sell. Necklaces made of frayed hair, dolls cradling hollow-eyed snakes, jars sealed with black wax, and broken shards of glass that seemed to hum ever so slightly in the air. Amma stumbled back. "What is this?" she whispered. "Every artifact here holds a promise broken," the stallkeeper said, her voice rising and filling the air with menace. "That mirror you bought? It's the keeper of your family's shattered threads. Its glow, it longs for someone to finish what was left undone." Amma's heart dropped. She couldn't think of any promises, any events in particular, that would connect her family to such darkness. What did she mean by shattered threads? "I only wanted a mirror," Amma insisted weakly, her voice barely audible. "You made me take more than I agreed to." The stallkeeper laughed, a sound like bone grinding on stone. "Do you think curses ask permission?" She spat the last word as though it was poison. "Everyone is bound by the sins of their bloodline. If you weren't strong enough to face them, you shouldn't have dared reach into the unknown." Amma's mind swirled with fear and confusion. "Then make it stop," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Take the mirror back. Undo this curse." She wanted to run far enough for this nightmare to disappear into thin air. But the stallkeeper shook her head. "That mirror cannot be undone because it was never placed in your hands. It chose you." The stallkeeper's voice changed in tone, growing deeper as if many voices echoed from her throat. The shadows around her stall seemed to stretch unnaturally, the faint light around the cursed objects dimming into darkness. Amma looked around wildly as the crowd in the market started to seem distant, muffled, as though she'd stepped into a space removed from the rest of reality. Glittering golden eyes suddenly flashed to her side. Eyes not human. Amma nearly screamed when a figure stepped out from the shadows, broadly humanoid but wrapped in jagged movements. It was as though it were breaking and rebuilding itself in constant cycles, a creature bound to entropy. Its limbs were too thin and long, and its face, it had no face. Only that painful glow like shattered glass she had seen on the mirror the night before. Amma stumbled backward. "What is happening? Who is that?" she whispered, clutching her bag tightly as if it were her only defense. "Your family's choices summoned it." The stallkeeper replied calmly, as though the creature were as mundane as a stray dog. "You broke too many promises, fractured too many bonds, and it thrives in those gaps. This isn't the first time it's visited, but it might be its first feeding." Amma's blood turned ice cold. "Feeding on what?" The stallkeeper grinned wickedly. "Your life. Your connections." Her voice twisted gleefully. "Do you remember any family story you've ignored? Any inheritance pushed aside? Because that thing—" She gestured to the creature that now hovered inches closer to Amma, "only grows louder when broken cycles scream." Amma panicked, tears stinging her eyes as memories flooded back. Her last conversation with her late uncle, the one who warned her not to forget the family land. Her refusal to hear her grandmother's full prayer of reconciliation. Her arguments with her brother about taking traditions seriously. Cycles of neglect. Broken links. Could this creature truly feed on forgotten promises? Before Amma could scream, the creature reached for her with golden shards extending from its fingers. They sliced through the air like blades. Instinctively, Amma reached into her bag and pulled the mirror out, holding it between her and the monstrous being. A high-pitched screech erupted from the stallkeeper. "Do not let it see itself," she bellowed, her screams cracking the unnatural silence. "It will—" Amma had no time to hear what it would do. The mirror's pale glow suddenly became blinding, illuminating the entire stall in shimmering golden light. The creature froze, its movements wild and uncontrollable, as though its very existence were being unraveled by the sight. The stallkeeper lunged at Amma, trying to yank the mirror away from her hands. But Amma held firm despite the overwhelming heat vibrating from the accursed object. She didn't understand what was happening, but the mirror had shifted its purpose. The creature was now convulsing unnaturally, its limbs stretching and contracting in horror, its golden shards falling to the ground one by one as the mirror absorbed its light. "Amma!" the stallkeeper screeched. "You've done something unforgivable." Her voice cracked, sounding almost pleased and horrified at once. Amma, heartsick with fear, dropped the mirror and watched as it hit the stone floor with a deafening crack. Everything stopped. She looked back up at the stallkeeper in terror, but the older woman wasn't looking at her anymore. Her whole frozen posture faced the ruined mirror, her hands trembling. Amma stumbled out of the stall blindly, bumping into startled shoppers who seemed as if they hadn't seen what happened, who hadn't noticed a thing. But Amma noticed. Something was wrong with the air behind her, a change she couldn't explain. She didn't dare look back. The mirror, now shattered, has unleashed something darker, something beyond promises broken. Amma cannot leave her ties behind, but will soon find her family may hold the key to understanding the shadows gathering around her. Amma's curiosity may uncover a far deeper realm than she'd ever imagined. Will she confront what's behind her next time? Amma, heartsick with fear, dropped the mirror and watched as it hit the stone floor with a deafening crack. Everything stopped. She looked back up at the stallkeeper in terror, but the older woman wasn't looking at her anymore. Her whole frozen posture faced the ruined mirror, her hands trembling. Amma stumbled out of the stall blindly, bumping into startled shoppers who seemed as if they hadn't seen what happened, who hadn't noticed a thing. But Amma noticed. Something was wrong with the air behind her, a change she couldn't explain. She didn't dare look back. The mirror, now shattered, has unleashed something darker, something beyond promises broken. Amma cannot leave her ties behind, but will soon find her family may hold the key to understanding the shadows gathering around her. Amma's curiosity may uncover a far deeper realm than she'd ever imagined. Will she confront what's behind her next time? She stumbled through the market, her pulse pounding in her ears, her heart a trapped bird thrashing against its cage. Amma kept her head down, her hands trembling, no longer clutching the spices she had come to buy. Behind her, the stall-keeper's shocked silence pressed against her back like an invisible hand pushing her forward. The shattered mirror. No, she couldn't think about it. Just get home. Just breathe. Each accidental nudge against startled strangers made her skin crawl. Their faces seemed dull now, almost blurry, as though she had stepped into a world running parallel to her own, warped in some way she couldn't yet understand. The fresh smells of ripe mangoes, roasting groundnuts, and sizzling plantains mingled with a strange, sharp scent that tickled at her nose. Something acrid, a warning. She pressed forward mindlessly till, like a predator stalking her, the silence arrived. The joyful chatter and laughter buzzing through the air cut out like it had been stolen, leaving only fragmented echoes in her mind. Amma froze mid-step. Slowly, she turned her head and looked behind her. Nothing. No stall-keeper, no shoppers, no market. Just a shadow stretching long down the pathway before her, and she wasn't sure it was hers. Let's pause here for a second. If you're new to Storytime Africa, welcome. Be sure to like this video as you dive into the mystery with us. What do you think Amma should do next? Comment down below. Share your thoughts. Now let's go deeper into Amma's journey. A sound. A soft skittering like claws over dry leaves. Amma ripped her gaze away from the shadow and darted toward home. The streets she had known her whole life suddenly felt alien. The warmth of the midday sun felt wrong, tainted, dulled. Her tears blurred her vision as her legs pumped harder than they had ever carried her before. The fear was a living thing inside her, a clawed creature dragging itself along her ribs. "Don't think about it," she whispered to herself. "Get home. Get home. They'll know what to do." Her family, the one thing she always leaned back on, their love and rooted wisdom a sanctuary in times of uncertainty. Amma's aunt, Ebun, had always said strange warnings against things Amma didn't understand. Warnings about energies crossing worlds, shadows that move in ways the light never intended, a sound, a soft skittering like claws over dry leaves. Amma ripped her gaze away from the shadow and darted toward home. The streets she had known her whole life suddenly felt alien. The warmth of the midday sun felt wrong, tainted, dulled. Her tears blurred her vision as her legs pumped harder than they had ever carried her before. The fear was a living thing inside her, a clawed creature dragging itself along her ribs. "Don't think about it," she whispered to herself. "Get home, get home. They'll know what to do." Her family, the one thing she always leaned back on, their love and rooted wisdom a sanctuary in times of uncertainty. Amma's aunt, Ebun, had always said strange warnings against things Amma didn't understand. Warnings about energies crossing worlds, shadows that move in ways the light never intended. Ebun had told Amma many stories growing up. Strange tales about mirrors that were gateways, vessels for spirits angry at humanity for not listening closely enough. Amma hadn't paid much attention then. But now every word roared in her ears. Amma burst through the door of her family's home and slammed it shut, chest heaving. The house smelled of home-cooked jollof and roasted yams, but the warmth she usually associated with it felt hollow. Ebun was standing in the living room, her bead necklaces swaying slightly with her sudden movement. Beside her was Amma's cousin Tunde, who had always been protective of Amma, though sometimes too curious for his own good. Further back, perched on a stool in the far corner, was Amma's quiet Uncle Femi, restringing an old guitar. And rounding out the room, Amma's younger sister Dara, whose wide brown eyes immediately darted to Amma, sensing that something was deeply wrong.
Amma?
Ibun's voice was calm, but her eyes carried that sharpness Amma always found unnerving. A sharpness that could cut through your soul to find every truth lurking.
What happened, child?
Amma opened her mouth but hesitated. How could she explain?
The mirror, it broke. she stammered. I I don't understand, but it broke in the market and the stall keeper saw something. I think I felt it too. Auntie, something isn't right. Something's coming, but I don't know what.
The room fell silent, complete, stifling. Amma could feel each family member's gaze settle on her, feeling their tension. Ibun set down her herbal tea, her golden bracelets clinking gently as she leaned toward Amma, her voice pressing down.
Did you touch the shattered glass, Amma?
No, I didn't even. Amma began, but stopped abruptly, remembering the strange pull she had felt in the market. Ibun exhaled slowly, then straightened.
You shouldn't have gotten so close. Mirrors hold power, Amma. They hold reflections of not only faces, but souls. And sometimes what reflects back isn't just the surface. Sometimes what lies behind the glass wants to come out.
Ibun's words hung in the air, resonating deeply within Amma as the weight of the situation settled in. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. A soft hum filled the air, climbing steadily into a sharp whine. Uncle Femi stood abruptly, his old guitar discarded. Tunde slid quickly beside Ibun, his body tense. And then, the whispering began. It was faint at first, like distant voices brushing through the family's ears. The sound made tears spring to Amma's eyes. Dara clutched Amma's arm tightly, her terrified gaze reflecting the panic rising in Amma's soul. "It's here," Ibun said softly, her voice steadier than the storm brewing around them. Amma glanced toward the window. The shadow from earlier had followed her. It loomed now, stretching unnaturally toward the edges of the house, blanketing the yard in darkness. Amma's breathing quickened as the whispers twisted into groans. "It's trapped between," Ebun continued, her focus intent like stone. "It crossed through the broken mirror but hasn't fully escaped. Amma, it'll look for a host. It'll pull you closer if you don't hold yourself firm." "No, it can't take me," Amma whispered, trying to steady herself. But her words felt weak amid the terrifying force closing in. Just as the shadow's shape began materializing, Tunde grabbed a lantern, an old kerosene one passed down through generations. They always said light protects, right? This thing? Let's see if it hates light. Tunde surged forth, lighting the lantern and holding it at arm's length. The room was bathed in the warm glow, slicing through the growing darkness. The shadow reeled, recoiling visibly, its shape twitching unnaturally. But this victory was short-lived. The whispers grew louder, morphing into guttural screams that felt like they came from nowhere and everywhere. The family huddled closer, and Abun gestured for the group to form a tight circle. "We don't confront such spirits with fear," Ibn whispered sharply. "We confront them with truth." Amma gripped Dara's shaking hand tightly, her pulse racing. Truth? Amma didn't even know what she believed. How could truth save them now? The shadow didn't just retreat. It advanced again, spreading tendrils through corners of the room, hissing harsh breaths. Ebun closed her eyes and began praying softly, muttering ancient incantations Amma hadn't heard since childhood. "Femi, hand me the talisman." Ibun barked suddenly. Femi didn't hesitate. From the table, he grabbed an old copper bracelet inscribed with words Amma couldn't read, but words Ebun clearly treasured. As Ebun held it tightly, she placed the talisman against the lantern's rising flame, amplifying its protective glow. The room was consumed by golden light as Ebun chanted louder. The shadow screamed violently, its tendrils recoiling faster, shrinking with each spoken word of power. Amma's tears finally fell, streaming as light and incantations battled against the monstrous form creeping nearer. Finally, a deafening pop filled the house. The glass panes rattled until stillness ruled again. Amma gasped for breath. Her body felt drained, her soul hollowed, but alive. The shadow was gone. Amma slumped into a chair as Eben turned toward her solemnly. "Child," Eben began, "today you saw a truth about our world that many ignore, but that doesn't excuse us from facing it. Shadows feed on broken promises, untethered connections, and buried pain. But light, Light reminds us to hold to trust, tradition, and wisdom as tightly as we hold to one another. That's the key. Over time, Amma began to understand that the shadow wasn't random. She had long ignored her aunt's wisdom and mocked many traditions, but she realized the cost of losing connection. To family, to spirit, to heritage. The mirror had been the breaking point, but it had also been a bridge. Months later, with Ebun's guidance, Amma learned to mend her ties, not just to family but to herself. She created lanterns of her own, inspired by Tunda's bravery, and gifted them to others who needed their own light to ward off metaphorical shadows. Her fear transformed into strength. Amma's story is a reminder, a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and stay rooted in wisdom that transcends generations. Light confronts shadows, but knowing what lies beneath is the ultimate strength. If you enjoyed today's Storytime Africa, share this story of Amma's courage with your family, your community, and those seeking hope amid darkness. Push the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and keep that lantern bright. Over time, Amma began to understand that the shadow wasn't random. She had long ignored her aunt's wisdom and mocked many traditions, but she realized the cost of losing connection to family, to spirit, to heritage. The mirror had been the breaking point, but it had also been a bridge. Months later, with Eben's guidance, Amma learned to mend her ties, not just to family but to herself. She created lanterns of her own, inspired by Tunda's bravery, and gifted them to others who needed their own light to ward off metaphorical shadows. Her fear transformed into strength. Amma's story is a reminder, a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and stay rooted in wisdom that transcends generations. Light confronts shadows, but knowing what lies beneath is the ultimate strength. If you enjoyed today's Storytime Africa, share this story of Amma's courage with your family, your community, and those seeking hope amid darkness. Push the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and keep that lantern bright.